Okay, get yourself ready for your morning practice. Sit yourself on a lift, cross legs. Put my microphone on, let me do that. Just get yourself ready. Just move yourself around on your lift, just ensuring that you feel like you're sitting evenly. Just have a little wriggle about and then hold on to your knees, lift up into the chest, draw your shoulders down away from your ears. Focus on long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations and exhalations. Just look down at the floor, look at something that isn't moving. So that your eyes are still in the sockets. Just focus on the sensation of expansion in the chest, accommodating the in-breath, and then the relaxation of the chest, accommodating the out-breath. Release your knees, bring your hands into Namaste. Press the palms firmly together, lengthen from your armpits into your elbows. And with an exhalation, allow your eyes to gently close. Just focusing on breathing in through the nose, out through the nose, if you can. Filling the lungs from the bottom to the top and emptying them from the top to the bottom. Just observing each breath. Each breath is a unique moment in time. With an exhalation, draw your chin down to meet your chest. Lift the chest to meet the chin. Just spend a few moments just to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance and richness in the heart area. Release the backs of your hands down toward your knees, palms facing upwards, connecting the tip of the thumb with the index finger. Just a gesture of wisdom, intelligence, and peacefulness that we can carry as an intention into our practice this morning. And then as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Just remain as still as you can for a moment, just holding onto your knees, just again observing the breath as it comes into the body, how your body accommodates that breath. Feeling the intercostal muscles expand with the chest expansion and relax with the exhalation. Hold onto your knees and elevate the heart area up as high as you can, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And with an exhalation, turn to the right side. Drawing your abdomen across, and your ribs, and your shoulders. Just observing how your body reacts to the turn, whether there is freedom or resistance or both. And then draw your focus beyond that initial resistance, if there is any. Draw your attention into non-resistant parts of the physical body. And observe how the perception of the resistance changes. Not to say that we ignore it, we should never ignore resistance, but our focus moves beyond it. Just leveling out that sensation of resistance. Come back to the center. Hold on to your knees, lifting up into the chest. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the left. Drawing your abdomen across, and your ribs and your shoulders. Using the out breath to intensify the turn, but working in partnership with your resistance. And then come back to the center. Just stretch your legs out and get yourself a belt and just shuffle off your, stay seated on the lift, but just shuffle forward so that the backs of your thighs are free of the lift. Have your feet about hip width apart. Push the feet firmly into the belt. Press the kneecaps firmly into the sockets. Turn the fronts of the thighs inwards. Lift up into the heart area. Again, just observing the breath. Observing the inhalation, the expansion. Not just upwards but outwards in the armpit chest, in the back chest, in the front chest with the in-breath. If you can come forwards, then do, but if you've got a bad back, just be cautious of coming forwards. Maybe just stay at this first stage. So just a little bit at a time. All the time keeping the head elevated, keeping the chest elevated, lifting up, coming forwards just a little bit at a time. Lifting up into the chest. Stretching forwards, using the belt. Maybe you can find your feet. Reach around the little toe side of the feet if you've got hold of your feet, rather than holding onto the toes, because that encourages a closed collarbone. Whereas if you reach around the sides, then it encourages us to keep the collarbone open. Just a little bit at a time, really activating those legs, lifting from the abdomen, from the diaphragm to the collarbone to the chin, just a little bit at a time, coming forwards. We're not going all the way down, we're just coming forwards just to observe the breath as much as anything. So observe how the breath changes. Keeping the head lifted, keeping the legs activated. It's really easy to forget about the legs, isn't it? It's really easy to forget about the thighs. Lifting the thighs, pressing the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs. And then coming back to the centre. And then observe that sensation of quietness in the brain that you get from coming out of a forward bend. Come up onto all fours, and then just sit back on your heels for a moment. Get a bolster, and we're going to rest our head on the bolster. If you don't have a bolster, then you can use a pillow or some blocks. Just lift up into the chest. Again, just observing your breath. Observing the sound of the in-breath and the sound of the out-breath. Just come up onto all fours. Turn your toes under, have your hands as wide apart as the mat, your feet as wide apart as the mat, and then come up into dog down, resting your forehead on the bolster. Activating your legs, lifting the seat bones, lifting the tailbone up to the ceiling, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, turning the fronts of the shins inwards so that the heels start to separate. If the bolster's too low, then put a block underneath it. If the bolster's too high, then just edge towards the end of the bolster where it's a bit kind of squidgier. So just supporting the forehead. Just focus on deep inhalations and exhalations, but keeping the legs firmly charged. Dog down is a really good position for observing your breath. In one of the classes I used to go to, our teacher used to have ropes on the wall, and we would have a rope around the top of our legs, and we would come into dog down, and we'd be there for like 15 minutes. we'd be focusing on the breath. It was brilliant. Just that feeling of freedom in the breath. So you don't want lots of pressure on your head. If your head is pressing into the bolster too much, then adjust the hands. Maybe walk the hands a little closer to the feet so that there's minimal pressure. Just fill the lungs from the bottom to the top. Fill them evenly. That doesn't always happen, does it? So if your lungs aren't filling evenly, then address it. Try to breathe into the other lung as much as the kind of more keen lung to expand. Listen to the breath. Listen to the breath as you inhale and exhale. If you need to rest, then do. If you can stay and maintain a little longer, then do. Okay, so you bend your knees, come down onto your knees, sit back on your heels. Just observe the quietness in the brain. So when there's pressure on the forehead, it helps to quieten the brain. Just feel how your legs are pushing into the floor. Lift up into the heart area. Stretch your arms forwards, interlock the fingers right into the webbing of the palms, and then turn the palms all the way out, raising your arms over your head. Observing how this changes the breath. And then release your arms. I'm just going to turn around so I can see you. And then swap the interlock the other way. And then raise your arms over your head. Feel that you've really got good connection with the ground, with the shins. Pressing the shins into the floor, lifting from the hips up into the armpits. Keeping the shoulders down. Lengthen from the armpits into the elbows, into the wrists, into the palms. Squeeze the elbows together if you can. So if your arms are like this, then try and squeeze the outer elbows in. That's it. And then release your arms. And then bring your bolster onto a tall end like this, if you've got one. If you haven't, you can use a chair or a tabletop, and then have a couple of blocks for your hands. And then have your feet as wide apart as your mat. Turning your toes inwards. Lift up into the chest, elevating the heart area up. Bring your hands into your hips, onto your hips, and then draw the elbows towards each other. Really consciously broadening the chest. Observe your breath. Activate your legs, tightening the kneecaps, thighs, turning the thighs inwards. All giving you space in the hips. Keep your back straight like it's glued to a pole. Keep your head lifted like it's attached to the pole, and then come forward, hinging at the hips. And then bring your forehead down onto the lift or onto a chair or onto a table. Reach down to the floor. If you can't reach the floor, use blocks. Activate your legs, tightening the kneecaps, pressing the front of the knee through to the back of the knee, lifting the fronts of the thighs from the knees all the way up to the hip socket. Turning the fronts of the thighs inwards. Lengthening the chest away from the legs. Breathing even deep inhalations and exhalations. So if the bolster is too low, then you can always put it on top of something just to raise it up. So you can put it on top of a little stool or footstool or something like that, just to give you a little bit of extra lift, so you've got support for your head. Focusing on the inhalation and the exhalation. Listening to the breath. And then bring your hands into your hips. And then come up into a standing position, bending your knees on the way up if you need to. Just moving your bolster out of the way, come up into Tadasana. So spend a moment in Tadasana, lifting the kneecaps, turning the inner knees towards the back of the room. Activating the thighs, lifting the thigh muscles, pressing the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards. And then without disturbing the legs, gently turn the tailbone in so that the pelvis becomes free. Lifting the abdomen away from the pelvis lifting away from the legs, the abdomen reaching up into the diaphragm, into the collarbone, lengthening your shoulders down away from your ears. Stretch your arms forwards, interlock the fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then raise your arms over your head in badhha asana. Aim to draw your arms beyond your ears if you can, but keep the arms straight. Keep the outer elbows squeezing together. Focusing on maintaining the breath. When you raise your arms, do your shoulders kind of reach up into your ears, or can you keep your shoulders away from your ears? Release your arms. Swap the interlock of the fingers, turn the palms all the way out. So just opening up the shoulders, turn the armpits around to the sides of the room. Just opening up the shoulders. Just breathing into the chest. The more you can open up the shoulders, the more you can open the collarbone, the more free the breath will become. So we aim, if possible, for non-resistant breath, for breath that is free, hits no physical barriers to come into the body. Because resistance in breath starves the body of oxygen, whereas non-resistant breath allows the body to absorb the prana of each inhalation more efficiently. Gently release your arms and come back into Tadasana. Just keeping the legs firm, activated in Tadasana. Using all of those instructions that I've given you already to charge up the legs. Bring your arms out nice and wide in towards your chest, and then step or jump. Go really wide. Do a really wide trikonasana. So a wider than usual trikonasana. Almost like we're going to go into prasarita padottanasana. And then turn your toes, your left toes in, your right leg and foot all the way out. Just feel that your hands are on your hips. Just feel that the hips are level. See if you can rotate these legs from the inside out. Lift up into the chest, stretch yourself out, and then come down. This time I want you to look down at the floor rather than look up to the ceiling. But keep turning the chest up to face the ceiling. Just look at a spot on the floor that doesn't move and just observe the breath. Fill in the lungs evenly. Filling them from the top to the bottom. At the same time, being really conscious of the alignment of the body in 3 dimensions. So make your own corrections. Feel where that front leg, that's the right leg, the front leg buttock bone is it sticking out? Or can you compact it in towards the front of the hip? Can you move that front leg buttock bone forward so that it comes into line with the legs? Just breathe even deep inhalations and exhalations. So it's a wider trikonasana. How does going wider change your pose? Maintain the consciousness of the breath. Keep reaching up to that top hand. Come back to the centre. Just swap the feet around. Turn the right toes in, the left leg and foot all the way out. Just resettle in the middle. Just feel that your feet are in the right place. Your legs are activating. You okay, Ruth? Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, listening to the breath. Stretching your arms out, just going to supta badhha konasana, Ruth, if you are feeling dizzy. Come down into trikonasana. Just look down, look at the floor. So whichever pose you are in, just observe the breath. Observe the nowness of the breath, how the breath brings you into the body, brings you into the present. And they often say that a mind that is stuck in the past is a mind that lives with depression. A mind that is stuck in the future is a mind that is full of anxiety. But a mind that lives in the present is one that we are in lots of ways in control of. We're in control of now. We can do something with now. So whatever now is, we can do something with it. Can't do anything with the past, can't do anything with the future apart from do something now. Come back to the centre, bring your feet parallel, and then step or jump your feet back together. Come back up into Tadasana. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Okay, so we're going to go into supta badhha konasana with a bolster underneath our back, if you've got one. If you haven't got a bolster, then you can just put some cushions underneath your back so that you're kind of sitting with a little elevation in the chest. A really nice variation on using the bolster is to create a little ramp like this. A really nice way to do supta badhha konasana. So if you want to create a little ramp for yourself, have a bolster on its on its long end and then one on its narrow end, and still have a blanket for your head. And then come down, sit towards the end of your bolster, pull your feet in towards the seat bones, and then lift the chest along the bolster, and then just recline back into the bolster. Have the palms facing upwards, connecting the tip of the index finger with the tip of the thumb, and just observe the breath. Feel how you can really acknowledge the broadening of the lower ribs with the inhalation. So this pose with the bolster and maybe the ramp for the bolster is really quietening and calming. So we've been effectively working with Ujjayi pranayama stage 1 so far. Just that action of observing the breath. So let's just spend a little longer just observing the in-breath, observing the out-breath. So we're going to do Viloma pranayama. If there's any reason why you shouldn't hold your breath, then you should avoid doing Viloma pranayama. You can do Ujjayi pranayama instead. So Ujjayi pranayama is just normal breathing, and then stage 1 of Ujjayi pranayama is where you take normal inhalations and long, slow, deep, deliberate exhalations until the lungs are empty. But you never hold the breath in that process. And when the lungs are empty, you take a normal in-breath, and then cycling around that extended out-breath. So when we go into Viloma stage 1, you can do that stage of ujjayi pranayama if you're not supposed to hold your breath. Just observe your breath for a moment. Observe how it feels right now. Observing the expansion of the in-breath, the expansion of the out-breath, the deflation of the out-breath. So Viloma pranayama is an interruption of the breath, and we interrupt the in-breath to start off with. So we take a full in-breath, but we stop along the way. The best way to do Viloma pranayama is to start to bring the breath from the perineum up to the collarbone with the in-breath, and then from the collarbone down towards the perineum with the out-breath. So just incorporate that apanic breath, breathing in from the perineum to the collarbone, and from the collarbone down to the perineum with the out-breath. So this is just preparation for Viloma. So just take some apanic inhalations and exhalations. So the first stage of Viloma pranayama is where it's almost like as you go from the perineum to the collarbone, you're climbing a ladder, but you stop on each rung of the ladder, and then you just suspend the breath for a moment until you get all the way to the top. So the in-breath becomes longer. So maybe there's 3 or 4 or 5 pauses in the breath. Just whatever is possible for you. Don't push it, don't strain. It should be gentle. So just a normal in-breath, a normal out-breath, just another normal in-breath, and then another normal out-breath, and then we'll begin. And after the next out-breath, we'll start to interrupt the in-breath until the lungs are full. So whenever you're ready. So the suspension should be just for a second or two. There should be no strain, just a suspension of the breath. And normal out breaths. And either continual cycles of Viloma stage 2, or you can just breathe normally in between one cycle for a couple of cycles, and then go back to another cycle of Ujjayi 1, or continuous. There should be no strain, so if you're feeling tension, then you're working the breath too hard. Just let the suspension be gentle. few more cycles. And then just finish with an out breath and then bring the breath back to a normal rhythm. So the next stage of Viloma pranayama is where you just breathe in normally from the perineum to the collarbone, and then you interrupt the out breath on the way out, on the way down. So again, it's like you stop on each rung of the ladder on the way down. If you did Ujjayi stage 2, where you extended the out breath, it's time you have a normal out breath and a slow, deep, steady inhalation until the lungs are completely full. So you can go into stage 3 of Ujjayi. So just normal breathing for the moment. And then let's move into stage 2 of Viloma, or you can do stage 3 of Ujjayi. It's just a normal exhalation, and then a normal inhalation, and then an interrupted exhalation until the lungs are empty. Never over holding, just for a second or two, suspending the breath. Just allowing the in-breath to be really free. Just during those holds, just feel that the body ingests the energy of the breath. There should be no tension in the chest or in the diaphragm. And then just bring your breath back to a normal rhythm, just normal inhalations, normal exhalations. Maybe observing that the breath is a little slower than usual, that will recover in a little while. Just enjoy that sensation of openness of the chest, lightness in the chest, in the head, in the feet. Enjoying the nowness of your attention, how the focused inhalation, focused exhalation draws your attention into the present moment. When your breath has recovered, just push your hands or your elbows into the floor and then bring yourself up into a seated position. Just hold onto your knees. Lift up into badhha konasana, and then just bring your legs into swastikasana, into crossed legs. Hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest, and then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across your ribs and your shoulders. So the third stage of ujjayi pranayama, which we don't have time to do today, is where you combine stages 1 and 2 and you interrupt the in-breath and the out-breath. But we'll save that for another day. Come back to the centre and then turn to the right. Just observe perhaps how your brain feels bright without being overstimulated. There's a lightness in the thoughts. Come back to the centre. then just bring the bolster underneath your knees. Move the blocks out of the way. Have the folded blanket for your head. Just for the final Shavasana. Just make sure you're in a really good straight line right down the centre of the mat. If you're wearing glasses, it's nice to take them off just for the last couple of moments. And then release yourself into the floor. Just let the physical body completely let go. So that the physical body initially feels a little heavy on the ground. Releasing the muscles of the arms and the legs, unhooking them, so that the body becomes like a rag doll on the floor. And then out of that heaviness comes a distinct sensation of lightness radiating out from the bones and into the muscles and the organs. And the flesh and the skin. Use your in-breath and your out-breath to distribute that feeling of energetic lightness down into the toes, into the fingers, and up into the top of the head. Just basking in that feeling of energetic lightness. And then when you're ready to disturb yourself, just wriggle your toes, wriggle your fingers. Bring yourself back into this pose of Shavasana. And then bend your knees. Bring your feet onto the bolster, the feet on the bolster, the knees together. Just resting your back into the floor. And then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little rock from side to side, from top to bottom, just a gentle massage on the spine. And then roll over onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then straighten out the top leg, come back up into the seated position, just a final cross legs with your hands in the masti, just a final spinal lift. Just draw the breath in through your nose down into your abdomen, closing your eyes if you haven't done already. Drawing your breath into your abdomen, observe the energy that you have released through your practice. Observing that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends and the pranayama bring to the body and to the mind. Draw your chin down to meet your chest. Just acknowledge the positive energy you have created inside. And then send some of that positive energy out into the world. And then gently release the backs of your hands down towards your knees, palms facing upwards. And as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel as though you really lifted your energy and you've given yourself some good, positive energy to put into the rest of your day. So thank you very much for joining me.